Yeah, so hello everybody. I'll do my introduction. My name is Storm Jacko, and I'll just go straight to the next one. Um, like I said, my name is Storm Jacko. I am born and raised in Hudson, Wisconsin, so right on the border, Wisconsin, Minnesota. And Greg, my stepbrother, is actually an elementary school teacher in New Richmond now. So amazing all the connections that we have, and you're linking us all together. Um, I was fortunate enough to be a Rotary Youth Exchange student, 2012, 2013 in Paraguay. Um, and then after my exchange experience, I was accepted to UW-Stout, where I majored in hotel, restaurant, and tourism management. From there, I got a job at UW-Eau Claire, where I was a study abroad coordinator and also in the interim service learning coordinator. And I'll touch on all these in more detail later in the presentation. I'm also currently living in Dublin, Ireland. I'm studying for my graduate degree at the moment. And this is in geography. And once again, I'll kind of be touching more on my graduate program in a little while, and also about my thesis topic, which I find very exciting. Um, but lastly, I'd like to say that I identify myself as a Renaissance person. And I really had a professor in my undergrad kind of inspire me with this. But by definition, a Renaissance person is someone who has a desire to learn new things and a never-ending curiosity for life. So I really tried to model my life around that notion, to have a never-ending curiosity for life and also a desire to learn new things. And I really do want to be a lifelong learner. And I feel like I'm trying to at least steer my life in my current direction with that in mind. So let's rewind the clock a little bit. Um, so I was first introduced to Rotary by a speaker my junior year of high school. So I went to Hudson High School. I don't remember exactly who came in, but it was someone just explaining what their time was like as a Rotary Youth Exchange student. It was in my Spanish class. And I was just amazed that this guy who just graduated high school was speaking fluent Spanish with a Spanish teacher. And it just blew my mind. I was like, wow, he's only like 2 years older than me. And if he can learn Spanish, maybe I can do the same. So that's kind of what my initial motivation was for it. So I ran home. I spoke with both my parents. My dad was all about it right away. He's like, yeah, you should apply. This is amazing. My mom, on the other hand, was a little more hesitant. She needed a little more convincing, a little citing more information for her, but eventually she was on board as well. After that, the rest was very easy, obviously filling out applications. And I was also really fortunate enough to receive some financial aid through Rotary itself. So that made a huge difference in allowing me to be able to have this transformative and honestly life-changing experience. So I studied abroad in Asuncion, which is the capital of Paraguay. And they call Paraguay El Corazón de Sudamérica, which means the heart of South America, as it is right in the middle of South America, hence the term the heart. And we were also fortunate enough to be the first group of exchange students in the new Rotary chapter in Paraguay itself. So the photo on the left there is myself and then all of our fellow cohort of exchange students. There was one other boy from the US. His name was Tanner. He's right behind me on my left shoulder, but if you look at the photo, it's on the right. And he is from Michigan. So we had a fun little rivalry during our time there. But everybody else is kind of from a mixture. One girl from Mexico, one girl from the Netherlands, one French girl, and one guy from Mexico, and then the other guy from Austria and Vienna. So it was a really lovely mixture of people, and we obviously became very close friends and bonded very well. One of my initial first cultural experiences, as this was not my first time out of the country, but I was only in Canada, so it was more or less culturally my first time experience a different culture. My host mom picked me up from the airport. She is very excited to see me. She doesn't speak any English at all. And at this point, I had 3 years of high school Spanish, but was I really learning Spanish? Probably not. No, not really. It was more of just kind of skating by and copying off my friends, and you know how it goes. So I'm trying to fumble around with my words at this point. And we get home. I'm tired. Luckily, there's only 1 hour difference, so it wasn't really jet lag. But after the journey, it can be a bit overwhelming. and she's showing me my new room, and she's showing me the dog. And it's common in Paraguay to have a housekeeper, so introduced me to the housekeeper and to my host dad. And this whole time I'm going around, I'm going like, okay, like this is great, okay. And then she keeps looking at me weird. Turns out this is a very rude symbol to do down there. It means the female anatomy part. Luckily, my host dad could speak some English. And when he noticed me doing that, he's like, oh, no, no, Storm, please don't do that. And he explained it to me. But I was like, oh my gosh, like my first couple hours in this new home, meeting my new family, and I already made a fool of myself. But they were loving and supportive, and they were totally okay with it, obviously. They knew that I didn't know any better. So my host parents were named Carlos and Hilda. I'm still in contact with them, but not as much as I would like to be. Although my host mom just commented on my Facebook profile photo a couple days, so exciting. They have two kids, and they were actually both on exchange as well. So unfortunately, I was not able to meet either of them, but I was staying in my host brother's room, so I feel like I still had kind of a connection with them at that time. But obviously, with my cohort, I made lifelong friends, and especially with one of my friends. His name is Jojo, and he's the one kind of holding the hat in the photo on the far left-hand side. So I just put together this little video here. So we call each other our brother from another mother. And I just realized since it's 2022 now, it's 10 years, but also 10 years since I was able to meet him. So this is Jojo and I in Paraguay together. And then this was us. I actually spent Christmas with him in Europe. And then this was him visiting me just a few weeks ago in Dublin, Ireland. So it's really amazing. We actually went on a bike tour in the south of Ireland in the Wicklow Mountains. So we rented bikes together and went, but just incredible, the 10 years and just 3 different photos
Where's he
spanning
from,
the time.
Where's he
from? He's from Austria. He's from Vienna specifically. So now it's my turn to visit him. So I'm trying to find some time in between my studies to head over to Vienna whenever flights allow, obviously. So let me continue on. So continuing with my exchange itself, the Capitol buildings on the left-hand side, I thought that was beautiful. So I was able to finish my senior year of high school there. So when I returned home, since I was gone my senior year, I still received a U.S. diploma, but I was able to do the graduation ceremony and to walk with my classmates in Paraguay, which was a really unique experience, and I loved it. Also, I went to prom there, and it was so much better than prom in the States. We rented out like an outside patio area, and they made an asado, which is like a type of a barbecue. It was just fantastic. It was so much better. My friends were all very jealous. One of the things that I did there is I really got into running, and I ran a 5K, and I'll never forget this moment. I was running this 5K, and at the end, you're supposed to sprint and kind of leave it all on the race, all on the track, whatever it might be. And I was really struggling at the end because I was trying to set like a new personal record and whatnot. What that means is like con fuerza, niño, which means with force in Spanish. And that really motivated me just to finish strong and to finish hard and leave it all on the line. But after that, that kind of saying really stuck with me, like con fuerza. So now, whatever I do in my life, whether it's studying, like, whether it's moving to a different country, even just little things like exercising some more or just hanging with friends, I always try to do it with con fuerza, like with force, with passion. If I'm going to spend the time to do something, I want to make sure I'm doing it right and I'm putting my best effort into it. And that's really kind of become a saying, just an internal dialogue of myself. Obviously, post my exchange experience, I've tried to maintain communications with Rotary as much as possible. There are some lulls in between there, I will admit, in my 10 years here, but I'm really excited to be reconnecting with people again in the organizations. And I do remember being involved, especially with North Star Rotary. I'm going to a couple camps after my return and just meeting students who will be going abroad again for their first time and kind of giving them advice and things like that. So post Rotary exchange, so I came back in the summer of 2013, and then I enrolled at UW-Stout, and I started right away in the fall. I majored in hotel, restaurant, and tourism management, like I said before. But I also had a specialization in international studies, and that was really due to my time with my exchange program. And then also within my major, I focused on international tourism. So I learned about hotels and restaurants, but really my passion was international tourism. My specialization, like I said, international studies. That's basically, it's more mine, but it's not quite a major. It's a weird in between that falls into. Stout's really unique in offering that. And then I also minored in Spanish, so I really was able to hone my Spanish speaking skills even more, and actually have some formal training with grammar and more writing and things like that. But I do remember feeling really anxious about going to Stout, especially when I was applying in Paraguay. So that was a unique experience in and of itself. But I didn't know if it was the right path or if I was choosing the right major or degree. But my host dad really sat me down. And he said to me, he said that this decision, imagine it like a chessboard, because I like to play chess as well. He said, you can see the correct move, you take a step back and remove yourself from the situation. So if you're observing somebody playing chess, you can always see the right move or the correct move that you think. But when you're in that moment, it's really hard to see. So they really gave me a perspective, and I was able to internally step back from the situation, and I do feel like I did a choice in that matter. My time in Stout was incredible. I've made more lifelong friends there. I also joined a camping club, which really ignited my passion for outdoor activities and camping, hiking, backpacking, things like that. That's the photo on the top right. It's called Al Fresco, and it's actually the oldest club at Stout, which I thought was phenomenal. I actually did become the president for the last 2 years of it as well, so I was able to get some leadership experience, which was extremely valuable. And I was fortunate enough to graduate with honors in 2018. And part of that was due to some scholarships that I received to help me financially, and Rotary was directly involved with that as well. So during my time at Stout, I also did another exchange year. This time I went to Fontys University in Venlo in the Netherlands. So that was during my entire sophomore year, so 2014 to 2015. From there, Venlo really taught me how to be more independent. So with my Rotary exchange program, I'm still living in the host family. Obviously, I was more of a cultural exchange, so I was learning a lot about the culture, the language, etc. But living in Europe by myself, being slightly older as well, I was really able to grow into my own body, into my own skin, if you will. And that I was really able to take that next step of becoming independent and more of a well-rounded, fulfilled adult at this point. Once again, I made lifelong friends there. So that photo on the bottom, that's the only photo that I could find with all of us together. But those are my roommates and one of my friends. So the guy on the left, his name is Huey. He's from South Korea. And him and then the girl in the middle, Vicky, they actually came to visit myself and my family in the States a couple years ago for Christmas and New Year's. So their first time seeing snow was really amazing for them. And then more recently, we also attended a mutual friend's wedding in Bali. And this was actually right before COVID hit. So I was traveling in Asia in October of 2019, and then the COVID outbreak kind of happened shortly after. So I was very fortunate with the timing there. The girl with like closest to Huey, so the second on the left, her name is Kara, and she's actually an American girl adopted from China. And she's one of my really close friends. And she was just visiting me here in Dublin last week. So I was able to show her around the city, and it was phenomenal. And then that's Vicky, who I already talked about. And then Andrea is the guy sitting next to me, and also in the tank top. He's from Italy, and I was fortunate enough to spend Christmas and New Year's with him and his friends. Or sorry, not Christmas and New Year's, that was Jojo. Andrea, I was able to have a Friendsgiving with him. So this past November, I didn't fly home for Thanksgiving, but I flew to Amsterdam, where he is living currently, and I was able to have a Friendsgiving with his roommates, which was phenomenal. It was really nice to still have that kind of family feel. So it is amazing how these connections that you make in one part of the world, you'll still maintain your friendships, and who knows when you'll see them again next, but you'll definitely see them somewhere. After I graduated from UW-Stout, I kind of bounced around from jobs for a little while. I worked HVAC installation for a bit. That was actually my summer jobs when I was going to Stout. So I just used those skills and became full time. But I knew that that wasn't really my calling. I mean, the money was great, and I learned a lot of skills, but it wasn't quite my calling. So I was still applying to different jobs, and fortunately, I did get a job at UW-Eau Claire as a study abroad advisor. So this was at the beginning of 2019. January, February time. But I really, really enjoyed that job. And one of my main highlights was being able to give back to study abroad students. That's what it really felt like. Since study abroad had such a huge impact on me, both at the university level and at a Rotary level. If I could just give back a fraction of what I got out of it and have somebody have that a similar experience and be able to see that passion and be able to try my best to really convince them to go in the first place, I would be happy. And fortunately, I was in charge of like the social media, advertisements, and I also held advising appointments. So I was meeting with students on a daily basis, really talking about the benefits of study abroad, how it can impact both their personal lives, their academic careers, their future careers, etc. It was a really fulfilling work. Unfortunately, COVID hit us extremely hard when it did hit. We had over 250 students abroad, and we canceled all of our programs in March. We had to get everybody home as soon as possible. The university paid for everybody's flight, which was incredible. A huge bill on their part, but just trying to work with our partners abroad and working with our students. And then also parents were calling and emailing us because they had no idea what was happening. It was a hectic environment to be in international education for a while. But we did stick through it. But 2020 and 2021 was just heartbreaking for me and my coworkers as well, since we had to constantly keep canceling our programs. We had students that would try to hang on as long as possible. So we allowed them to transfer to different terms. So they would say be on for summer 2020, but we cancel summer, so then they'd transfer to the fall, then they'd transfer to winter, and then spring again, and they out as much as they could to. And then during that time as well, our budget was really tight since we weren't sending students abroad, and my position was funded based off of student application fees. So I was partially furloughed, and then I also was temporarily reassigned as the service learning coordinator, which initially I had some hesitations about, but once again, looking backwards, it was a really great decision. I learned a lot of new skills as the service learning coordinator. So what service learning is at Eau Claire is all students are required to fulfill a service learning. They have to do 30 hours of it before they graduate. So this can be volunteer work, so volunteering at like an animal hospital or working in the community somewhere, anything like that. So it was my job to coordinate with our partners in the community to set them up with an application on our website so students could find them. And I was also connecting with students to explain the requirements of service learning, showing them how they can find a service learning position, and kind of being that middle person liaison back and forth. So it was an extremely valuable experience, and I actually started to really enjoy it at the end. However, I knew at the university level, I'd kind of reached my peak or my ceiling, just having an undergraduate degree. So for better or for worse, I did have to leave in order to kind of pursue my career in the future. And then from there, I decided to pursue my graduate studies. So at the moment, I am enrolled at the University College Dublin. I know, kind of a weird name. UCD for short is what we call it. And I'm enrolled in the Critical Geography, Power, and Inequalities program. So kind of a mouthful, but basically in a nutshell, because everybody asks what that is. So critical geographies allows us to engage with power relations and inequalities that create contemporary societies, spaces, places, environments, and lives, hence the geography aspect coming in there. It develops a robust critical analysis of power relation and inequality that define our contemporary and past worlds in search of improved futures. So we tackle a lot of different issues in our classes, which I find fascinating. So whether that's gendering borders, or whether that's power structures in our society, or we can go more specific, like in economies, or even when you talk about power structures in the classroom itself, so we can take it as broad or as our kind of interest, as our interests lie, basically. So I can't imagine a better fitting degree for myself. One of my goals for my future is to really work at a career where I'm making an impact. And I felt like being a study abroad coordinator was one of those things. And I feel like learning about the power structures in our society and just in our world, and learning about the inequalities that there is, it really enhances that work as well. This also gave me the skills to not just take things at face value, but to actually critically look and critically analyze both the world around me and just a subject or a paper or whatever I could be reading. So it really has even changed just my daily mind frame and kind of what I'm thinking on a daily basis. So kind of looking ahead of my academic career. So it's a one-year master's program, so it is really intensive. So normally it's 2 years in the States. For 1 year, you're taking classes, and the next year you're kind of working on your thesis. Well, for this, I have my first semester this past fall, I was taking courses. And then this spring, I'm also enrolled in courses, but I also need to be working on my thesis. So that's coming up very soon. I'm also, fingers crossed, COVID willing, I'll be able to go to Vietnam at the beginning of May. And I'll be doing, for one of my courses, I have to do fieldwork studies there. So I'll be going to Northern Vietnam to do my field work there, as the University College Dublin, UCD, has a partnership with University of Vietnam. And that'll be my first time back there. And my mom is actually adopted from Vietnam at the end of the Vietnam War. So I'm really looking forward, fingers crossed, that I can go to connect back with that heritage, which I'm very excited for. Obviously, working on my thesis. Right now, my thesis is still a work in progress, but I'll be focusing on digital nomads and also people that are doing van life and kind of studying their lifestyle, their motivations, how they fit into society as a whole, but also be using an overarching theme of technology. So how technology allows these people to live this kind of lifestyle, how they can work and stay connected. And is this a viable thing that's going to just grow in the future? Or is this more of just a trend happening? And obviously COVID has a huge impact on that. So I'll be tying in things of traveling during crisis and looking at how people have mass exited out of cities. So there's a lot of things I'm trying to tie together right now. Fortunately, my advisor is fantastic. His name is Dr. Bradley Garrett, and he was actually on the Joe Rogan podcast a couple of years ago, before all this controversy that's happening. But it was really interesting. He was actually one of the people that inspired me to apply for a geography master program. I knew that he was even a professor at UCD, and actually at the time of that filming, he was a professor in Australia. So it was just by happenstance that he was a professor at the same university that I was accepted to, and then also that his research interests align with mine. So it just kind of blows my mind sometimes, once again, looking back, connecting these dots. And obviously in the future, my program will end in the middle of August, so August of 2022. Then I'll need to start thinking about my future career as well. At this point, I feel like I'll be in a crossroads. I could stay in academia, which is what I'm leaning towards at the moment. So whether that's staying in international education or eventually getting my PhD and become a professor, I'm not quite sure yet, but I really enjoy working with students at the student level, especially, and then working in a higher education institute. My family itself, a lot of my family members are teachers, but they all taught either at the middle school or high school level. So like I said, my stepbrother is a teacher in New Richmond. Both my grandparents are retired high school teachers from Hudson. My stepfather is a teacher. Like I said, my stepbrother is a teacher. My uncle is a teacher in River Falls. So I definitely come from an academic background, but I might be the black sheep and do something just a little different. but we'll see. And then my other option I was kind of toying with was potentially trying to get into the foreign service and becoming a foreign service officer, which is extremely competitive, but I feel like that would also be a very rewarding career in the future. So just speaking a little bit more generally about myself. So I have three main goals when I try in my life and just when I'm thinking about what I want to do in my futures, especially coming up in August, which I'm trying to put off at the moment, just taking it one day at a time. My first goal is to work with purpose. So whatever job or career that I go into, I want to make an impact in somebody's life, hope a positive impact, obviously. So that's why working at UW-Eau Claire was such a significant impact that had on me. And then I felt like I was hoping that I was impacting these students as well and trying to really convince them to be a study abroad student, not quite gatekeeping, but just encouraging and giving them benefits. Family is also very important to me. So I come from a close, small knit family. Like I said before, my mom was adopted and same with my aunt. So both adopted by my grandparents. And they also had one child. So we're just a family of three. I have one aunt, one uncle, and then my mother. And then they don't have any kids, so just my mom. But speaking of kids, my mom had a little girl when I was studying abroad in Venlo. So there's a 21-year difference between my baby sister and I. That's her in the top left. That was at her birthday. She looks so serious in that, but I swear that she's actually really sweet and loving. So family is obviously very important to me in maintaining those connections. And lastly, friends as well. So is a third goal of my life, obviously. And I felt like I'm really trying to do a good job of that, even with my international friends that may be thousands of miles away, but still we can connect and message and video chat. And when we're in the same area, we meet up. But also, it's a little selfish. I want to stay friends with these people since I have been studying blue zones, especially in Japan and Sardinia and Italy. And those are zones where the average lifespan is 90 plus years for these people that are living, which is incredible. It's way longer than the average, but they really attribute that to a strong social network and having just a happy life. So that's also kind of a priority, obviously. My core values. So when I was taking a course my junior year at Stout, I thought it would just be a mundane regular course. But the professor that was teaching it actually really spoke a lot about his core values. And I think he was trying to inspire us to think about our own, which was really interesting to me. So I never had thought about this, and not a lot of people around me really talk about their core values. So I sat down and I really thought about it. And I do fall back on these. And in times of crisis, I will fall back on my core values to make sure that I'm staying true to myself and what I want to do in the future, but also just reevaluate them, make sure that they still ring true to me. But they are peace, patience, understanding, and truth. So in times of crisis, if I'm stressed, I definitely let my core values guide me through those difficult times so I don't lose myself in that chaos that can happen. But yeah, that's enough about me. I just want to say a general blanket thank you to Rotary. Without Rotary's help and support, I would not be in the position that I am at this point in my life. Both looking back and the influential experience that I had studying abroad and how that really impacted what I want to do, both as a career and personally, and how it set me on the track that I am today is extremely impactful. Also, with my graduate studies here, I was able to receive some financial funding from a few specific Rotary clubs. So I was extremely thankful for that. Specifically, the Hayward Rotary Club, they donated $500 to me as a scholarship fund. And then 3 members of that club personally matched that donation, which was incredible. I couldn't believe it. So I've been taking some of their meetings and trying to give back as much as possible. Also, the Prior Lake Rotary Club also donated me $500 as a scholarship as well. So it really does show that maintaining these connections and that Rotary does believe in what I'm studying, but just trying to make the world a better place in general. And they do put their money where their mouth is, which doesn't happen very often with organizations. And I just want to end it on this quote from Steve Jobs. This quote really impacts me as well. And I think it definitely is how my life has been so far. So you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, whatever. This approach has never let me down and has made all the difference in my life. And I think that's really true because looking back retrospectively right now, I can see how all my dots connect and how I've ended up where I am at this point. But being in that moment, in these decisions, I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know if this was the right decision or if it'd set me back or what I would do in the future. But I think this quote really rings true. Yes, thank you. That is all.
Storm. I might be the only one off mute. I'm kind of blown away by you. Where did you go?
Oh, sorry, 1 second. Here, let me stop sharing my screen. Stop share. There we go. It's on. I swear.
Because we're clapping.
There.
I don't know if you can see.
Thank you. Here, let me unplug. Sorry, I have an external webcam that sometimes glitches out.
That's okay.
1 second. I swear it's turning on. There we go.
Hey,
that was wonderful. Just wonderful.
Thank you.
Who would like to ask Storm some
questions? Anything? Yes, Greg.
Storm, what made you choose Dublin? How did you find out about Dublin? How did you end up there? And was there connection to UW-Stout or UW-Eau Claire?
Yeah. So I had known that I wanted to pursue my master's degree. So I actually applied to 4 different schools in the US. I applied to Tennessee, Hawaii, Kentucky, and Oregon. And unfortunately, I was waitlisted on 2, and then I wasn't accepted to the other ones. And eventually I wasn't accepted to any of them. And I graduated with honors. I felt like I had a good GPA, but they really said it was because this was in the middle of the pandemic. So they said a lot of students were given more time to finish their master's thesis. So that was taking some of their spots. And then also some students that were accepted before deferred so they could have an in-person experience, which I totally understood as well. So it was just a year of being super competitive. I was feeling a little bit like, you know what, screw it, I still want to go. So I looked abroad. That's how I stumbled across UCD. They're actually ranked globally. They're all ranked higher than those schools I had applied for originally. But also I really resonated with that program. It's the only one in the world right now. So it's a brand new program I'm a part of. They had their first cohort last year during the pandemic, and this year is the first year that they're doing it in person, which is phenomenal. So I met with the main advisor there, and then also the department head. I liked them both a lot. So I applied. Unfortunately, I was accepted to this program. And I was also accepted to a program in Scotland. But the Scottish program was a little more expensive, and they used the pound versus the euro, which has a better US conversion rate. So I ended up going with Dublin. And I've loved it ever since, honestly. I can't think of a better spot for me to land.
So exciting.
It really is. Storm, it's probably not culturally appropriate to ask you your age, but what is your age?
Yeah, I just turned 27 in January 10th. So
okay, so I just you just blow me away with your confidence and your optimism and the way you are approaching life. I love the fact that you gave us your core values. They really mirror the Rotary core values. I don't know if you ever, at your Rotary meetings, if you ever heard when club members recite the 4-way test, which we do after this meeting. But it's a process of asking yourself 4 questions. And if you can answer yes to all 4 questions, then it kind of shoots you in a direction that's correct. And it really mirrors what you said about listening to your core values and making sure that they fit with all of the decisions you've made. You very much mirror the values of Rotary. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
And once again, that's probably, it wasn't intentional, but it was probably that influence that Rotary has had, that deep influence in my life, and so transformative. We always say that Rotary is transformative, but I like it. The goal of the presentation was to look back and see how all those dots connected and how transformative it really was. And I feel like it did get the point across.
Yeah, you did a nice
job.
Thank you. Yeah, you really did. All right, who else?
Since you just brought that up, Chris Ann, Storm, can you talk just a little bit more about that? After sharing your age and hearing you talk about your goals and your core values, my video was off, but I was like doing a little cheer. That's just so impressive. Can you tell us a little bit more about what made you come up with your core values and those 4? And I know you said they help you make decisions, but I would love to hear just a little bit more about your thinking behind that.
Yeah, of course. So that professor that I had, I actually sat down with him and asked him how he found his core values. And like, did he come up with them? Like, how to pull them out of thin air? What happened? And he basically said that it doesn't matter where you get them, whether it's through a book, poetry, you read online, but as long as it resonates well with you, that's all that matters. So that's kind of what I did. I just thought about my personality at first, and I'm a very patient person. And I expect patience from others if I'm struggling. So obviously that was kind of a key one right there. So that set me off on the right path. And then I expanded on that thought process a little more, and I thought, why am I patient? What am I looking for? And then that led me to finding peace. And that's really what I want in my life, is just a peaceful existence, having peace around me, giving peace to other people. So that was my second core value. And then from there, I just went to the next one. So what is peace? How do you get peace? How do you bestow peace on somebody? And that's by understanding the point of view, where they're coming from, what their angle is, whatever it might be. So that was the next one, understanding. And then lastly, you can't have understanding if you're not telling the truth, if you're not being truthful to yourself, to the people around you, etc. So that's how I landed on truth at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Olga?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't even know where to start with all the questions. It was so good. And I don't think to me, it's not only the peace piece that you're sharing, but also I think something about hope. I didn't have a difficult day, but there were just a lot of silly things that went wrong, like my computer didn't start. And here you are, and you're like, I do all these phenomenal things, and you tell me everything. And it's everything you do with a reason too, right? And then Steve Jobs' quote at the end, where you look at your history and connecting the dots, and I think it's just fantastic. And I can't help but of course, that you've been in the Netherlands as well.
Of course.
It's not taken in Venlo. That river is not that big.
No, it is not.
But that was cute. So one thing, very particular question, and it might not be of interest of anyone else. So if you'd like to get back to me later, that's fine too. But you mentioned something about digital nomads, and I think that's one thing I really don't know much about. And I did do a very tiny little bit of research when it popped up a few times. And honestly, I'd love to learn more about it. What would you recommend? Where can we learn more about that?
That's hard to say at this. Since I'm so early in my research at the moment, I've really just been reading about the digital nomad lifestyle via social media. So seeing what they post on like TikTok, Reddit, Facebook. And then I actually have a couple of friends that have lived that digital nomad lifestyle. So I've been able to pick their brains a little bit. but basically, just a broad definition is that somebody who makes their living or their wage online, and then they travel around. So one of my friends, they're actually married, so they're a couple. They own their own marketing firm online, and they go to a new country every 90 days, so they only stay in a tourist visa. But that's actually considered slow travel in the digital nomad space. So they embrace the slow travel where they get to actually stay in a city for a while, start to experience the culture, learn from the locals a little bit, learn the language, and they really enjoy that. But what I find fascinating about digital nomads is studying the space that they occupy. So hence the geography coming in, but specifically like their living space. So Airbnb was Airbnb. It's kind of the chicken and the egg, which came first. Was it digital nomads came because they were able to, because of Airbnb, or was Airbnb saw an opportunity? So then that's how they started thriving because of digital nomads. And then also a new trend that's happening is called co-working. So what digital nomads will do is they will rent out a desk in a common office area for 3 months, 90 days, whatever it is that they're traveling for. And then they go there and they do their work. But then other digital nomads are doing the same. So there could be 20, 30 desks in this office. So they're still getting that in-person office experience, but they're just renting that space temporarily, which I think is really interesting.
I agree. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
I'm recently reading a lot about minimalism. Today in the book I was reading, there was a lot of talk about Steve Jobs. And so he was a minimalist, and it was talking about his approach to his work and how he used minimalism to create Apple and a lot of Apple products and stuff. So tying into the digital nomads, are you looking also at minimalism either as a, is that an aspect of the digital nomads, either material minimalism or lifestyle minimalism?
I think if somebody is living that lifestyle, it's almost a requirement to have material minimalism in its own way. Since they're moving around so much, they can't carry more than like a checked bag at a time, or else it'll just be cumbersome and inconvenient. And even that's really rare. Most of the time they have like a 40-liter just a day pack that they put all their stuff in. And I think that kind of comes down to the culture of being a digital nomad, having that freedom where everything you own, you carry it on your back. But what I also find what they like about that minimalism is that the objects that they own are high quality objects. So they're not just going to buy a rundown pair of jeans or shoes. They're going to buy invest in and buy a really nice quality item. So when they're using it, obviously it's more fulfilling, and they don't feel burdened by having just a bunch of cheap things that'll eventually break on, in 5-ish years or less could be. And I feel like normal people, we all kind of understand that where it's like, how long is this actually going to last me before I have to replace it or throw it away? And then they just don't even think about that. They don't have that lifestyle. Yeah, question, sorry.
Oh, Greg, I don't know, Storm, if you're watching, if you can see the, you see that from Greg?
Yeah, I would love to give a presentation on my thesis. And a part of my thesis, I was kind of mulling in my head, is also potentially transforming into a video essay, since multimedia is becoming such a huge thing, and academia is slow to change, but it is slowly changing. And I feel like that'd be great to distinguish myself. So whether that's just me talking at a camera and then overlaying with some clips about what I'm talking about or something like that. But I'd be happy, obviously, to share anything that I create.
We would love to have you come back. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Olga, that's so cute. Like this every week. You and Night Owl. We're here every Wednesday, and you've got the Zoom link. This is the exact same Zoom link every Wednesday at this time. So if you want to, if you see a speaker that you're interested in, like our Facebook page, because then we, we publicize all the speakers a couple of days before they speak. So fun to see you again.
Yeah. I will definitely like your Facebook page. I can't promise every Wednesday, but I will come more than just this time. I do promise.
Oh, we would love that. We would love that.
Very much.
Anyone
Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Does anyone have any other questions for Storm?
Yeah, anything at all.
I want to just make a comment that I think you are so inspiring and motivating, and probably way more than you know, for probably people at all ages who have been curious about learning something new or curious about trying something out. So I just want to say thank you for not only showing up today, but the way you put your presentation together and led us down a path and kind of ended it with some incredibly motivating, simple pieces. So I think, the core values and the goals that you're following and how you ended it, we're so loud and clear. And I just want to say, huge thank you.
That means a lot. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Speaking of those values, I'm going to share the 4-way test. So Storm, maybe you've seen this, maybe you haven't, but the point that this was put together, we're supposed to ask these 4 questions of ourselves if we're facing a decision to be made. So as a club, if you guys can take yourselves off the mute, let's recite this, and Storm, you can recite it with us. And they're really great words to live by. This is very much Rotary's ethical feelings as well as they approach. So the 4-way test of the things that we think, say,
is
and
it
do.
the truth?
The truth. Is it fair to all concerned?
Will it
build goodwill and better friendships?
Will it be
beneficial to all concerned?
Can you see how it really mirrors your core values?
Yeah, I do see that.
Very much. Well, you guys, thank you everyone for coming today. Storm, thank you for taking the time to put together a presentation. We really loved it. Come back anytime. I'll make sure I bring you back after your thesis is done, so you can show that to us as well.
Definitely.
You guys, next week, Elka's speaking. Let's see here. She's speaking. She's doing her Teach Me, and it's called When the Whole World Comes to You. World Fairs and Expo 2020. I don't know if you know Elka Schmidt. She went to Austria, and she's a member of this club. So if you want to come back and listen to her, she's very interesting.
Fantastic. Will do.
So everyone, listen, have a great week, John. I'm sorry you've had technical difficulties, but I'm so glad.
Thanks for taking over, Chris-Anne. Really appreciate it.
A pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. Storm, so much. Really do appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Safe travels to Hanoi or Northern